Good afternoon, Mark here from Exel and another Decanter panel based tasting. This time of one of the Brunello di Montalcinos that topped the July 21 panel tasting of Brunellos from the 2015 vintage. Now there are 10 wines in that panel that scored outstanding, 95, 96 or 97 points, of which we have one here that we're about to taste. The interesting thing about that is that there are 10 top 2015 Brunellos there, all of them amazing, I dare say, but you can only find 2 of them in the UK. Now we spent a lot of time trying to chase some of the other 8 down, but what we discovered is right the way across Montalcino, they are all gone. They all sold out given the huge amount of demand for that particular vintage. Pretty amazing vintage 2015. There's a lot more discussion about all of this, a lot more chat about this in the blog, the web page that we've created online. Do by all means have a look at that. But yes, nearly all those 2015s had gone. Now that's not to diminish this one at all, but I think shows some of the rarity value actually of 2015 top-end Brunellos still available out in the market. And I think it makes this one all the more interesting. What makes this even more interesting is that this one is priced at £32.50. Now those of you that are Brunello drinkers and buyers will know that just over £30 is a pretty crazily good price for a Brunello di Montalcino that scores 96 points in Decanter and is pretty highly rated and has been pretty highly rated in previous years as well. So I think it's one to snap up for those of you that are Brunello drinkers. Another point that comes out in the Decanter panel, which we'll discuss in the tasting in just a moment, is 2015 is an unusual vintage. It was hot, it was really quite warm, and it is rated by many pundits as being one of the very top vintages of the last 20 years. Certainly the Consorzio in Montalcino saw it that way. James Sucklick sees it that way as well. There is a criticism of it by some quarters that it is not a vintage for the long haul, that these are Brunellos to enjoy now, sooner rather than later, rather than to do that thing for which Brunello is pretty famous, which is to age and be cellarable for 30, 40, 50, even more years. I mean, it's one of the truly keepable Vanguard long distance reds, if you like, and the real question is, does the 2015 vintage do that? Anyway, what we have here is one of the wines that scored 96 points from Campogiovanni. It's on the southern side of the Appellazione, the DOCG, in Montalcino, and therefore tends to be one of the warmer sites tending to produce thicker, heavier, fuller styles of wine. And indeed, it's one of the wines from Campogiovanni 3 years ago, which was again 3 vintages ago, I should say, 2012, produced a 95-point wine for Decanter, pretty heavyweight and very likeable, and a 95-point score in Decanter at the time. Anyway, let's try this. Interesting in the glass, and it's always fascinating. It's what I call the Barolo effect to look at, and I'm not sure how well you can see that. That is, it's not particularly opaque. I mean, that is not Cab Sauv. You can see through that, and you look at it and you think, well, I'm not sure that's got an awful lot of body to it. It looks like a Pinot Noir. It looks like a Gamay. You know, there's not a lot of opacity or thickness to it. Well, that changes, as we'll see in a moment when we taste it. Colour-wise, really quite brick red, quite garnet already, indicating that it's already a little bit of the way down the age trajectory of the wine. On the nose, as Brunello goes, and as Sangiovese goes, I would say it is quite muted. I mean, there's plenty of nose there. The big thing you pick up particularly is a mixture of red and black fruits, but also some quite aniseedy, licoricey kind of notes, star anise, almost that sort of Pernod smell. I mean, let's not put you off, but there is definitely a sort of aniseed hit to it. Definitely a sort of herbal essence to it. I don't know how to describe it really. If you were talking about a Provençal wine, you'd be talking about Garrigue, but it's some sort of herbal essence that you get on that wine. And then on the palate, well, that's where it does its work. That's when you know it's a Brunello. And all of that apparent visual thinness and all of the, how should we put it, muted nose is all dispelled really when you taste it. That is a full mouthful. I mean, Brunello always is, but that is a full mouthful. There is a density, a thickness, a fullness, a richness, a grip to it, which is really very attractive. I say grip, the tannins are really very plush, very soft. I mean, again, you would say that those tannins perhaps are indicative of a wine that is a little bit older. That is, they are soft, they are velvety, they are really attractive. Acidity, well, it's Sangiovese. It's got some crackle to it, but that acid doesn't stick out. The acid is already melded into the wine. Again, already indicating that that's a wine which has perhaps travelled some over the age line, perhaps more than you might expect for a wine that is 6 years from vintage. Fruits, as I say, definitely red and black. Probably slightly more red than black, but there is definitely a density, a blackness, a thickness to that fruit. There's a bit of blackberry in there, which is quite unusual, I would say, for Sangiovese, even from Brunello. You've got those anisey flavours, the herbal flavours. It's all really attractive. So the question is it a wine for the long haul? Well, it depends what you want from your Brunello. If you want to keep this 30, 40, 50 years, it's not going to do that. It's not one of those super long distance Brunellos. This is not one that you're going to be fishing out for the grandkids. However, in terms of it being a really attractive, drinkable Brunello, which I think will comfortably do 10, 12, maybe even 15 years in the cellar. I mean, could you be drinking this in 2040? Probably not. 2035? Maybe. I think it's glorious now. I really do. I think it's an absolutely cracking glass of wine. Decanter on the panel, I think, indicate that you should be thinking about drinking this from 2022 onwards. I'm drinking it through to 2032. Well, I would drink this now. I would definitely drink this now. I think it is approachable now, very attractive. Long distance horizon, actually really quite difficult to say. 2032 probably seems a fair guess. I would be very surprised if I could make this last much beyond 2030. I shall buy a dozen and see how long they last. Really good, and at £32.50, I think, as Brunello goes, it doesn't come an awful lot better.